Today, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was rushed to the hospital over a high fever and cough. And as I sat here and reflected on my low opinion of him, I mean, it's to the point where if I were to take my top 10 least favorite living people, he would be in the top three. No one has done more to spread death and destruction across the Middle East than this man, whether it be his rejection of the two state solution in general or obstructing the Oslo Accords. Just very awful. Hello, Envoy. Um, Greeting the one person that commented. But it got me to thinking about when people were not exactly fond of or fans of strike an illness, is it right for us to wish that something happens to them? For example, as I read this story and I was thinking about how there have been cases where colds and other seemingly minor ailments will turn into major mismanagements of health, I did become tempted to say, oh, I hope something worse happens to him. But then I reflected back and I said, if he were out of office through being voted out, all of my problems with him would be absolved. Um, because the issue currently is that he is currently in office. And he's been there for quite some time. And it was just this thing where I said it's not correct for me to wish upon another person some kind of bodily harm uh, over my own distaste toward what they advocate or what they've uh, done. Hello, Dirk. Um, and also, on a side note, this story did serve to get me to recognize my own level of inactivity in regards to speaking on the Middle East, which is an issue that I don't think many people, as far as those who live in the U.S., are fully aware of. Um, it's a very complicated and I think interesting story. And the only problem is when I try to break it down or think of ways to break it down, I find some video that's done it better or someone I think can enunciate and speak on the various high points of it in a manner that is more conducive to getting people to listen. So that's one of the reasons for my not prioritizing it. It's that it's already been put out there. Now I'm sure there are some people, if I talked about it, probably would have never heard it on here, but um, the majority can look it up from other sources. I just really, uh, in seeing that story, became kind of disillusioned because it brought a character who I haven't paid much attention to in the madness there's been many of Trump's recent activities in the past year overall. Um, so to have him just kind of come to the forefront, even for something as minor as this, I just took it in stride. So I'm going to have something else out soon. And Dirk, uh, the Israeli prime minister came down with a flu or was admitted to hospital. They overflew. I'm not a fan of his, and I didn't think after some reflection that it was right to hope for the worst for someone that you think the worst of. Uh, Especially when my issues with him can be absolved by him being removed from office via the next election cycle. So I hope that explained it for you. And also, I realize just many people here are not going to understand my distaste, and there actually is going to be a group that will say, "You don't like Israel." I don't like Israel's government. I have no problem with the people living in that part of the world. I think Israeli officials, following the assassination of Prime Minister Rabin, have refused to steer the course toward improving the lives of both their own people and the Palestinians. So And that's kind of my take. I don't. My problem is not with. When I say Israel's done this, it's not the people of that country. It's government. If I say the U.S. has done this, it's not the people of the U.S. It's the U.S. government. Um, Dirk says, explain what he or his government did. He's been instrumental in obstructing a two-state solution. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has resulted in casualties and deaths on both sides, and he's pretty much steered that. And it's even more ironic given the fact that, hello, C-Lab, it's even more ironic given the fact that under the Obama administration, U.S. funding for Israel increased to $3 billion for the first time in American history, and relations are said to have been further knocked down. Actually, I found an article with what is this man's name? Barak or Barak, where he was the deputy prime minister at the time. This is back in 2012. He said that under the Obama administration, he couldn't think of anyone that had done more than anything for Israel. So keep that in mind when you ask yourself, why am I upset with? Okay, Bravo says I'm saying if he would use Death Note if it existed to make a better world. Yeah, I can think of a couple of names that if they went in that book would probably have caused the betterment of the world. It's kind of funny how, a lot of times we think to ourselves we're dealing with these major world powers, but it's really just a couple of people pulling the strings. If they had elected, or if Rabin had lived, or if someone with his ideology had been elected in the place of Netanyahu, you would not have this problem. Where you had an individual that was willing to steer the course and work out a peace resolution, you wouldn't. This issue would not be addressed right now, or would not still be going on after 2 decades. So, it's sad because it takes people who, I don't like wishing for someone's demise, but I start thinking about all of these casualties that have piled up as a result or indirect result of actions and policies he's taken, and you start getting upset, and you get to the point where you start seeing a lot of these politicians um, as these placeholders for obstruction and continued savageness of man. Okay, Envoy says, what exactly am I talking about? I don't know which part you left off on. I'd have to. You're gonna have to tell me what exactly was the last thing you heard, so I can give you your overview. But I'm gonna cut this off. We're gonna talk about something else tomorrow. Hopefully, someone here was educated by this. So, the Israeli Prime Minister envoy Netanyahu, he went to the hospital. I'm trying to get you to understand that this man is, again, if I like I said at the